Welcome to the Cinema MD podcast. My name is Matt.
And I'm Dana.
And today we're talking about Ingrid Goes West to start things off. This is a movie starring Aubrey Plaza. It also stars O'Shea Jackson Jr., Elizeabeth Olsen, Wyatt Russell, and Billy Magnuson, who plays the character Cousin Nicky, who kind of was the most memorable person in the movie for me. And I will say that overall I was a little disappointed in this movie. It didn't live up to my expectations. I thought it was going to be much darker than it was. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed. I thought that the premise of the movie was kind of cool. Basically, Aubrey Plaza is obsessed with a sort of pseudo-internet celebrity that she follows on Instagram, and she decides to move to California and sort of change her life to become best friends with this person. So definitely kind of a creepy, stalkery vibe, and I think what did it for me was the score, or soundtrack to the film. It just seemed a bit goofy. It just didn't really signal the kind of darkness that you were expecting, and there was a lot of buildup, and then nothing really happened in terms of the super creepy kind of thing, so it was pretty predictable.
Yeah, the movie kind of set your expectations to a certain place, I feel like, with the opening of the film. You knew that you were kind of dealing with a somewhat loose cannon, crazy person of a protagonist. And it seemed like she just kind of keeps digging herself a hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And you think that it's going to go to a really scary, really dark, really fucked up place. And it just never quite gets to where it doesn't get to where I think it should get. It kind of plays it a little bit safe. And that's not to say I don't think it's a bad movie. I think I was disappointed primarily because based on the trailer, based on kind of the buzz that I had heard about the movie, I just had very high expectations going into it. So I want to preface everything. It's not a bad movie. I think it's not a movie for everyone, but I do think that overall it was a good movie, just not as good as I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think the same thing here. I just had much higher expectations, was kind of disappointed in it. It was still entertaining. I thought that Elizeabeth Olsen's character was pretty spot on in today's sort of Instagram for money culture. She definitely reminded me of a few people I have met in real life that are just super pretentious and all about a brand and a lifestyle, and everything is picture perfect, which obviously I thought they also could have gone down the road of showing that life isn't picture perfect, just in terms of that character's life specifically, which they kind of hinted at it, but it just didn't really get as deep as I thought it was going to go. So it was interesting to draw comparisons between that character to some people I have met.
I do have to say, I think they did a good job kind of adding some nuance to each character and adding some sort of unique qualities that kind of personified each character. You've got O'Shea Jackson Jr. playing the Aubrey Plaza's kind of sort of boyfriend / landlord character, and his whole shtick was that he was super obsessed with everything Batman.
Specifically Batman Forever.
Yes.
Which is the worst
movie
Batman.
Batman Forever. On their first date, he just talks to her about Batman Forever. It's insane. I mean, he's got a Batman license plate. He keeps the Batman Forever soundtrack on CD in his truck. And funny story about that too. So Casey and JoJo's All My Life played prominently in this movie a couple times, and that song was actually supposed to be Seal's Kiss from a Rose from the Batman Forever soundtrack, but apparently Seal was charging too much money for the rights to use the song, so I guess the director's sister suggested using All My Life instead, and I will say it worked out pretty well. Maybe it wasn't quite as poetic as using Kiss from a Rose with all of the other Batman Forever references, but it was still pretty funny whenever it was used. The other thing, going back to the cast, so you have, O'Shea Jackson Jr., obviously. Billy Magnuson is somebody I want to talk about, because you probably don't know him just by his name. He played Prince Charming in Into the Woods, the film version. He's been in a number of Broadway shows. He was nominated for a Tony Award for something, I don't fucking remember. And he's kind of a disconcerting looking human, at least in this movie. He's like super ripped, has like that Ken doll blonde hair, and in this movie he is just like super fucking hyper on cocaine all the time, being a crazy person. And really it's when he's introduced that you think the movie's going to go to a really messed up place. And while he is like the best part of the movie for my money, he doesn't really get to take the movie to the place I wanted it to go. I know you kind of had an issue with the score as well.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely pictured it being more, a little more modern, a little more maybe synthwave kind of thing, and it was almost like Danny Elfman-like. The thing that it reminded me most of, and not that I even ever watched this show, but if anyone can remember back to Desperate Housewives, that sort of opening intro, sort of swelling music and piano and strings and things like that. And so I feel like it kind of kept this whole tone a little bit lighter. And obviously it got like more serious and intense as needed. But really probably the most sort of intense scene, it takes place between Aubrey Plaza's character and Nikki, who you were just talking about, which is the Instagram girl's brother. And it's like this tense scene between them, and he has his own music playing in the background, which had sort of like the more modern synthesizer, kind of clubby dance music a little bit, and that scene was really unsettling. And I think that would have played way better to the whole theme than sort of a traditional score.
Yeah, I can see that. The score in parts, especially, there were some weird kind of creepy things happening, and the score almost sounded more like something you'd hear at the beginning of like a trailer for the new Benji movie or something. It seemed a little out of place.
And I can see something like that, using it as like a juxtaposition of happy music and dark scenery, but it just didn't quite make either of those marks, so it just didn't sound right.
No, I think in fitting with the kind of tone of the movie and the look of the movie, you've got this super, and again, the movie is very heavily influenced by social media culture, especially Instagram. Instagram features prominently in the movie. It's a plot device. The entire movie itself is basically a huge indictment of social media culture, and also deals with a little bit of kind of the weird idolization of social media personas. Whether or not they're deserving of it in any way or not. But as far as the score goes, I agree with what you're saying. There were moments where there was like this kind of a synth, like a hard synth pop score. And I think if that had been maintained throughout, it would have been more effective. I'm not saying it needed to go like full on Cliff Martinez Drive where it was super dark synth stuff. I think more of a dancey pop synth soundtrack would have achieved the juxtaposition you were talking about, where it would have been a more lighthearted, like dancey soundtrack, compared to kind of like this inner fucked up sadness that the main character was dealing with throughout like the entire movie. As it was, it just seemed all out of place. But overall, again, we had issues with this movie for sure, but at least for me personally, I would say that it was a good movie and I would recommend it, especially if you're one of these people like us who are on our phones all the time. It'll definitely kind of make you think twice about popping on Instagram every 30 seconds or so. Again, go see it. Good movie. I think it could have been way more messed up than it was, and I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. It was okay, I guess, if we're trying to rate it at all. I probably would give it maybe a 5 out of 10. I mean, nothing too special, but still enjoyable.
I guess I liked it a little more. I'd give it about a 7. I think we've primarily been reviewing pretty good movies so far, and I I really don't want to give something a 5 because when I actually see a 5 and review it on one of these episodes, I know it's going to be worse than Ingrid Goes West. So, I give it my recommendation. So, the next new release we want to talk about, I feel like actually uses a soundtrack that would have fit with Ingrid Goes West, at least a little bit, and that's the movie Good Time, starring Robert Pattinson. This movie I feel like didn't get a whole lot of press. Neither did Ingrid Goes West, although Ingrid Goes West did have a bit of a social media kind of, media blitz, I guess. Kind of a marketing, like a Instagram marketing kind of thing going on. Good Time, I haven't really seen much for it other than positive buzz from critics. So it stars Robert Pattinson, and he's basically this New Yorker who robs a bank with his brother. His brother ends up getting put in jail, and the whole movie is about him trying to get his brother out of jail.
It should be mentioned that the brother seems to be pretty moderately cognitively impaired, so it kind of opens with that, and obviously Robert Pattinson is very protective of his brother, but also kind of exploits the fact that he is pretty malleable. He just does whatever his brother tells him to do, and can't really be responsible for thinking through the consequences of actions at all.
And this is definitely one of those movies where it's pretty, the plot-wise, it's a bare-bones plot. There's a bank robbery at the beginning of the movie. That's not really a spoiler. That happens immediately. Also not a spoiler because they never tell you. There's really no motivation. You don't know the motivation for the robbery other than he wanted some money, I guess. There's no dire, dramatic plot device that makes them need this money right now. They just, Robert Pattinson's character, I think his name's Connie, short for Constantine, basically just decided to rob a bank and made his brother help him. And that's pretty much the plot. The plot then is Robert Pattinson running around like a crazy person all over New York, getting himself into all kinds of shit, trying to get his brother out of jail. And this movie, as opposed to Ingrid Goes West, does get a little dark, I would say.
Oh yeah, I mean, pretty much any other sort of supplementary character that he runs across in the film pretty much ruins their day at the very least, if not their lives also, which, just kind of goes to show that he's digging himself deeper and deeper, and it seems like he's making quote-unquote smart decisions as he goes through, definitely good at thinking on the fly and getting himself out of situations temporarily, but as things keep building and building, you think there is no way for him to get away with all the different crimes he's committed by the end of it.
No, this movie definitely builds this impending sense of doom for the main character and for pretty much everybody involved. It's very tense. It seems very desperate, the entire situation. Like, you don't know how this character's going to get out of it. And it really, you know, until the very end, you're like, you really don't know what the hell's going to happen. And a lot of that I would contribute to good writing. I think that you've got characters who have to talk their way out of situations with police, security guards, things like that. And a lot of times those kind of dialogue scenarios come off as very forced and fake. And in this case, I feel like they seemed very real, and they seemed like what someone in this kind of desperate situation might actually come up with. They seemed legitimate. I felt like the characters all seemed very real. And that's a tribute to the screenwriters, one of whom is also one of the directors. The other director, they're brothers, Ben and Josh Safdie. So Josh Safdie helped write the film, but his brother Ben Safdie actually co-starred in the movie and played the mentally disabled brother.
Yeah, and he was great. Honestly, in the beginning of the film, I was wondering if they actually chose a mentally disabled individual to play the part, which I do appreciate that when people can find actors playing, someone with a disability who actually have that disability. And then once you kind of saw the names on screen and things like that, you realized that it was not the case, but he did a fantastic job. I thought that the portrayal of it was really good. And not in any sort of over-the-top or offensive way, but, I thought he was great at it.
And all the other actors in the movie did well, too. There were a couple other moderately well-known actors in the movie. Barkhed Abdi from Captain Phillips. He was the lead pirate in that movie. And he played a security guard. Had a pretty small role. And, I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but I thought he, did a pretty good job. And I actually am glad that he's getting more roles. I want to see him get more roles. I think he's a talented actor. And I feel like his kind of unique look is almost hurting him at this point.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see him being more typecast, especially because he does have a prominent accent also, which, we all know doesn't help actors any in a lot of cases in terms of trying not to be typecast. So, but this was obviously a little bit different and, a small role, but, he did really well with it.
And the other small role, which is a character that I mentioned, I thought was really well written and seemed like somebody that maybe the directors had known. And this was a character played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, and the character wasn't given a name or anything. This was basically a very small part, surprisingly, considering it was probably the biggest name actor in the movie, with the exception of Robert Pattinson. She was basically just there as like a bit part to be the older kind of cougar that Robert Pattinson was sleeping with to get money, essentially. But I thought it was a pretty well-written character. She seemed like a typical kind of, I don't know, ignorant, undereducated, crazy person that came from money and didn't really know how the world worked.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like the party girl who's grown up, but not grown up emotionally. Still lives with her aging mother and is given like a credit card and an allowance type situation, but still just can't make the right decisions and get her life together.
So anyways, the big thing to take away from Good Time is Robert Pattinson's performance. We haven't talked about it enough, and that's definitely the key that holds the movie together. I really hadn't seen Robert Pattinson do too much. Obviously, I've seen him in, Harry Potter, and I've seen the first Twilight movie. And, he pretty much stares awkwardly and sparkles and, is in general just terrible. I had no expectations for him doing anything post-Sparkle Vampire. And to my surprise, he carried this movie. And I think he did an excellent job, and I hope he does more movies like this. This was a very intimate movie. I mean, it was pretty much all Robert Pattinson, up close. A lot of just him talking, him doing things, and he made it work.
Yeah, not to mention, or because you mentioned the up close, almost the entire film is face shots. You notice that immediately, scene for scene, it is up close shots and kind of just goes back and forth between whoever's speaking. They have a couple scenes where they're in cars that was probably filmed by like drone, and a few scenes that were pulled back, but honestly, the majority of the movie was up close, which gave it a very claustrophobic feel, kind of added to that unease and tension of you're in deep shit and how are you going to get out of it. So I thought it was a device that was used well, but it did take a few minutes to kind of adjust to.
So my score for Good Time, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. I mean, it was excellent. I would say I didn't mention the score yet. This was very similar to something that you might hear from Cliff Martinez. Something that you might hear, again, the most common comparison would probably be something like Drive. But there's been a lot of movies that have kind of gone with that formula for their soundtrack recently, and this is no exception. This one actually did win the Cannes Soundtrack Award this year, and it was done by a guy, 10 Tricks Point Never. That's his DJ name, his performance name, whatever. I don't know who he is. I've never heard of him. But I'm assuming we're going to hear from him a lot more, especially doing scores for movies, considering he won the award at Cannes this year. So definitely, pay attention to the soundtrack. If you see the movie, you're probably going to be hearing more from this guy.
Yeah, that was the first thing I said as we walked out of the theater was, see, if Ingrid Goes West had this soundtrack, I would have liked it a lot more. So, but yeah, this one was really good. I thought that it was a lot more intimate, a lot more gritty. Even like the film style, and honestly, I didn't look too much into it, so I don't really know film-wise how it was filmed or, the process used, but it definitely had more of a blurry around the edges, gritty look to it also, which I think just went to the theme. You didn't want something that was big and Hollywood produced for a film like this.
So we usually do, after our new releases, we throw in a movie that Dana hadn't seen yet, because we all know that there are way too many of those that she has not seen, being a woman in her 30s. So we decided to give her a break this week from, making her watch something that she absolutely should not have missed. We decided to instead pull out what we would consider a hidden gem. This is something that's come out, whether it's an older movie or maybe a more recent movie that got overlooked by most people. And I don't necessarily think this is one that nobody's heard of, but at least from everybody that I know, if they've seen this movie, it's because I introduced them to it. It was on Netflix for quite a while, so it's not currently on Netflix, unfortunately. So that makes it a little harder to find. You're gonna have to, pay for it or, get the Blu-ray, whatever. But the movie that we're talking about today is Chef. Chef is written and directed by Jon Favreau, also starring Jon Favreau as the titular chef. And this is one of my favorite movies the last few years. I think this is probably just one of the most enjoyable movies to watch that I can think of in recent memory.
Yeah, definitely a feel-good film. It's super rewatchable. Not that it's really been played on TV or anything like that, but I could see if it got picked up on a cable channel, it's one of those ones that if you're flipping through channels and you see it, you're going to sit down and watch the rest of it. I personally loved it also because my father was a professional chef, so I kind of know the kitchen politics that kind of go on in higher-end restaurants and sort of the dilemma that chefs are caught between in wanting to be creative with their own new ideas, and that's exactly what food is creativity and art, but then also having to follow what a restaurant owner wants for their image or their restaurant. So I totally dug the conflict, at least in the beginning, and then he kind of goes off and does his own thing, which is still super fun and just all about food and family and friends, and sounds corny, but great movie.
And this is one that I'm not going to get into super spoilers here. There's no plot twist or anything like that to worry about, but since it is something that I would consider more of a under-the-radar film, I don't want to just talk about every single plot point because I want you to go see it. I want you to, kind of seek this movie out and watch it for yourself because I really love it. It's got a great cast. In addition to Jon Favreau, you've got John Leguizamo, Bobby Cannavale, Robert Downey Jr.'s got a cameo. Oliver Platt has a sizable role in the movie as well. Sofia Vergara is in it. Am I missing anybody? I don't know who plays his son.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know the kid. And yeah, Sofia Vergara. I mean, we do like our Modern Family is a little guilty pleasure over here.
She's basically playing her character from Modern Family.
She is, but more realistic. I mean, she's not as super crazy over the top. Still, a Latin American woman, but more down to earth, a little bit more realistic. But she plays a good character.
Also Cuban, not Colombian this time.
Yeah, that's why I paused. I couldn't remember where we were coming from here.
Well, in this movie, it does kind of become all about Cuban food. And there's all kinds of cooking that goes on. I mean, you've got, when they're in Texas, you've got barbecue. When they're in New Orleans, you've got all the Cajun food and the little fucking donuts. What are they called?
Beignets.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. So, they travel all around. They've got this food truck kind of thing because obviously in the beginning of the movie, he gets in this huge blow up with his boss at this, 4 or 5 star restaurant, whatever. So he does a food truck thing. That's obviously like the trendy thing. There's food trucks everywhere. Everyone loves them. So he does a food truck, and it's kind of like a family road trip with him and his son, and then it's just kind of that's kind of the thing. It's like him bonding with his son because he, that's the crux of the movie. Him bonding with his son through his cooking, and his cooking is what he's always been passionate about. His family, and maybe not so much. So therein lies kind of the whole dramatic point of the movie. There's also it handles social media really well. I feel like you've got the use of things like Twitter in this one. We talked about Instagram with Ingrid Goes West. Chef uses Twitter. Jon Favreau's son uses Twitter effectively to basically advertise the food truck and basically helps get his dad like back on the map. And that's kind of what happens in the movie. It's pretty cool.
Well, in the beginning of the movie, he gets himself in trouble with Twitter because as someone from an older generation, he doesn't really understand how it works. So there's some comedy there, and he doesn't really know that, or doesn't really realize that what he's saying is public for everyone to read. He thinks he's sending a private message. So it's pretty funny.
Yep, absolutely. The music is great. There's some tracks from like Gary Clark Jr., a lot of Cuban music, a lot of really good Cuban music. It's just like a really kind of gets you in the mood to dance a little bit. Maybe have a margarita or something. I mean, it's a fun movie to watch. Also, you can't go wrong when you're just seeing really good looking food being made for an hour and a half.
Honestly, some of the food scenes are like borderline pornographic. It's when they talk about food porn, that's what they mean. It's just you look at these shots and you want whatever they're making.
Seriously, I would watch Jon Favreau make a grilled cheese for days. I mean, I went from 6 to midnight watching that grilled cheese get made.
I believe it. I was there.
She was there. I was wearing gym shorts. It was awkward. So go see Chef. Find it. I wish it was still on Netflix. I thought it was still on Netflix. I checked today. Not on Netflix. I have it on Blu-ray. It's available on Blu-ray. You can probably get it on eBay for $5. So if you want to see a really great movie, if you like food, but you're sick of watching reruns of Chopped, then check out Chef by Jon Favreau. It's a great movie. So we got our usual list that we do. We're going to do that now. We kind of did one that's in reference to, I would say mostly to Good Time. Although I think it could kind of go in line with Chef as well, with Jon Favreau. Or Sofia Vergara for that matter, because she doesn't really do much.
True.
So our list today will be our top 5 notable performances from actors who generally don't have too many notable performances, or alternatively just performances that kind of came out of nowhere from actors that hadn't done anything really notable up to that point. So they're not necessarily all going to be breakout performances. Some of them might be. Some of them might just be kind of the one good performance that a shitty actor had. Either way, that's kind of what we're talking about. So it's not I guess we don't have a dead set topic for it, but these are just some really great performances from some actors that prior to these performances, and in some cases after these performances, never really lived up to that again. And I guess I'll go ahead and start. My number 5 is Marlon Wayans in Requiem for a Dream. Marlon Wayans is stellar in this movie. Everyone is stellar in this movie. This is a hard movie to watch. I think I've only watched it 2 or 3 times, and it's hard to get through. There's a lot of fucked up shit, and it's brutal, it's violent, it's gory, and it's super fucking depressing. Marlon Wayans, holds his own with Ellen Burstyn, Jared Leto, and Jennifer Connelly. He is every bit as good as both of them. That being said, with the exception of Requiem for a Dream, I struggle to name a single other movie that he has impressed me in. I guess the scary movies, maybe?
That's kind of a stretch, I feel like.
I mean, they exist. That's as far as I'm willing to go with
They're
it.
a thing.
They're a thing, and his name's there. There it is. All right. That's my 5. Do you want me to do my list, or you want to alternate? It's up to you. What do you think we should do?
I'm I'll jump in. You don't get all of it here.
All right. Dana's jumping in.
All right, so my number 5 is Jim Carrey in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I thought that this was sort of a turning point role for him. Obviously, he went a little more serious in Truman Show. Kind of could show that he wasn't just a goofy physical comedy type actor. But I feel like that was sort of an ease into the genre in Truman Show. He still got
Truman
to be...
Rolls the fucking shit.
Oh, it is. I'm not knocking that movie. But it sort of eased him into a dramatic role, whereas Eternal Sunshine was, pretty heavy in a lot of aspects, and I think really showed a different side of him completely. So I thought that was kind of a turning point in his career. But I feel like didn't do a whole lot after that, at least not to the same either star power, magnitude, cult following that movie is.
No, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a masterpiece. Truman Show is also a masterpiece. I love that movie. That being said, it's not as good as Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and Jim Carrey is not as good in Truman Show as he is in Eternal Sunshine. So, I agree with your pick. And I also agree that what the hell has Jim Carrey been doing since then?
Just doing awkward interviews, I think.
He's done some awkward interviews. I also saw there's a documentary coming out where he does artwork. He's got like an entire art gallery. Like, I'm talking like a half acre of artwork that he sells for like thousands of dollars a piece.
Yeah, if it works, it works.
Yeah, I actually saw like a trailer for the documentary, and holy shit, he's actually really, really good. So apparently he's been moving on from movies to be an artist, so more power to him. But that's a great pick. I feel like that was the movie that I hope he's remembered for. Yeah,
I would agree.
So number 4 for me is definitely no Jim Carrey. This is Lindsay Lohan from Mean Girls.
I'm really mad that you thought of this before me.
I really like Mean Girls. I liked Mean Girls when it came out. I don't even know. Was I in college? When did Mean Girls come out?
You're asking the wrong person.
Was I in high school? Was I in college?
No, I'd say college.
I was a very young man. Let's put it that way. And I thought Lindsay Lohan was super hot, and I wanted to bang her really, really bad, especially in that movie. That was also a great movie, though. I mean, it was one of those movies where, when it came out, I was still young enough to feel insecure about myself, and I thought, like, am I supposed to like this movie? Is this like a movie for chicks? I don't really know if that's cool.
For chicks.
Listen, I've grown as a human.
You have.
And now those aren't the thoughts I have. I watch Magic Mike by myself, and I just really enjoy myself.
You feel feelings.
I don't enjoy myself like you think I might. Sometimes I do, but not exactly like that. Maybe a little, but Mean Girls confused me because I felt like it was a movie made for girls that I really enjoyed as a manly man who played sports and was in a fraternity and did guy things. But I think that says a lot about the movie, and Lindsay Lohan was great in the movie.
She was. I was super shocked. I was pretty pretentious and picky about movies, I would say, back when that came out, and I saw previews and thought, oh, that's a dumb movie. That's for dumb people. I want something a little more intelligent. Then I heard that Tina Fey wrote it, and I was like, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. Obviously, it's a funny movie. It still holds up pretty well. Super quotable. Probably the only good thing that Lindsay Lohan has done as an adult, and she just went on the express train to shit town after that. I mean, just really sad and terrible.
Meanwhile, her co-stars Amanda Seyfried and Rachel McAdams have gone on to do very much great things.
Sorry, Lacey Chabert, you missed that train too.
You know what? She had Party of Five. That was her thing, you know. Oh, also Lizzie Kaplan was in that movie and played maybe she's a lesbian, we're not really sure, goth girl who hated all the popular girls. And now she's doing all kinds of shit too. She was in Masters of Sex on, I think it was on Showtime or something with what's his face?
I don't know.
Michael Sheen. That's who I'm talking about. That guy. So she's gone on to do great things. Everyone in that movie has gone on to do great things except for Lindsay Lohan and Lacey Chabert.
Wah, wah.
So,
all right.
That was my number 4.
My number 4 here, I have Anne Hathaway in Brokeback Mountain. Smaller role, obviously, comparatively, but that was sort of her turning point role also. I do fondly remember dragging my boyfriend at the time to see this movie, who was insecure in his masculinity and didn't want to see the gay cowboy movie, and was at least appeased because you got to, quote, see Princess Diaries tits. So, aside from that, she was known for her kind of goofy... Was Princess Diaries Disney? Yeah? Maybe?
It's possible.
Sure, one of those. Sort of those family movies to obviously a more serious role. But she, showed she's got the acting chops to be a serious actress and has only gone up from there.
Yeah. I concur. Brokeback Mountain was a great movie. It not only did it make Anne Hathaway's career, I think it really kind of catapulted another actor, Jake Gyllenhaal, kind of into the stratosphere too. Heath Ledger, I feel like, was kind of on his way there already. He was kind of, first of all, R.I.P. Heath Ledger, but he was like the golden boy. He could do no wrong. Like, every movie he made, he pretty much took over that movie. So, I think Heath Ledger would have gone down in history as one of the greatest actors of the generation.
For sure.
Had he not passed away. Since he did pass away, I feel like Jake Gyllenhaal has taken up that mantle and is currently one of the most impressive actors working today. I love him in almost everything he's in. So I think that movie is another example of a movie that was filled with great breakout performances. For sure. Yeah,
obviously she didn't have a huge or like earth-shattering role, but she did it and did it well. And yeah, that whole cast, even Michelle Williams? Is that her name?
Her, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was blanking for a second. She was great, too. And I previously hadn't really liked her in much. So, obviously just a great film.
And Michelle Williams went on to star in such depressing films as Blue Valentine and Manchester by the Sea. So, if you're looking for a good cry, just check out Michelle Williams' IMDb page and watch away. So, my number 3 is Matthew McConaughey. I feel like everyone that has known his filmography probably would agree that he needs to be on this list somewhere. So he obviously started out with a bang with Dazed and Confused. Great performance, tiny little performance, but everyone remembers Wooderson, everyone remembers all right, and he still fucking says that all the time. That being said, since that movie came out, which was in like 93, he basically had like a 15 to 18 year long break of primarily shitty romantic comedies where he played the same like kind of lovable prick with a southern drawl that you didn't really like, but he looked good with a shirt off.
Phoning it in. Just really phoning it in.
Well, he was typecast. And I think he was typecast really harshly until the year 2011. And in 2011, Matthew McConaughey did Killer Joe, Bernie, and The Lincoln Lawyer. All 3 of these movies were huge critical successes. The Lincoln Lawyer made a ton of money. Killer Joe and Bernie kind of flew under the radar, and they were more lower budget, kind of smaller movies. Bernie, I think, did pretty well on Netflix, though, too. And Jack Black was excellent in that one as well. Killer Joe was more of like it was almost like it kind of came off more like a stage play. Like it was like a one scene, kind of like one location kind of movie. That being said, he killed it in all 3 of these movies, and they were all dramatic roles. Bernie was a dark comedy, but still far more depth to that role than anything he'd done prior to that. So in 1 year, Matthew McConaughey essentially said, fuck you, romantic comedies, I'm making real movies, and he really hasn't turned back since. He's had a couple of duds. I don't think anyone's going to refute that he's had some bad movies thrown in there. But for the most part, he's been killing it. He won Best Actor for Dallas Buyers Club. He was in Interstellar. He was in Mud, which I loved Mud. I know you didn't love it.
No. But it's funny that Matthew McConaughey totally goes on the list. All 3 of those movies that you mentioned him for, I have not seen. So.
Also, he's in Magic Mike, which I've already talked about my deep, undying love for Magic Mike and its sequel, Magic Mike XXL. Love those movies.
They are good. But what I will say about Matthew McConaughey in Mud, he was great in it. I think that the story kind of lacked a little bit in that movie. So there were definitely some pretty significant plot holes if you went back and tried to piece everything together. But he was good. But yeah, he's had a comeback, if you will, and his career's, only going up.
What is your number 3?
Number 3 for me is Natalie Portman. I kind of have 2 films here for her. The first one is more of like her personal turning point for me, is Garden State. Love that movie. Definitely have a soft spot for it. I did not like Natalie Portman before that movie. I want to say, though, really the only thing I had seen her in was the, We Shall Not Speak of It Star Wars movies, the prequels. She just was so terrible. Those movies are so terrible. We don't need to talk about it. So when I saw that she was in Garden State, I thought, oh, I guess I'll see it anyway, even though I hate Natalie Portman. And begrudgingly, that character and her acting, made me love her. So that's sort of a personal one. But if you want to go more, a little bit further into her career, obviously you can't argue that her performance in V for Vendetta was incredible. And, anyone who can sob and look like a crazy person while someone's shaving your head on screen is doing pretty well in my book, although I'm sure I would be crying too if someone was shaving my head on screen. So yeah, but that's obviously one of her first super memorable roles, I think.
I mean, she was also in The Professional.
I know she's been in other things. I hadn't seen it. Surprise.
I know that's one you haven't seen, and that's probably one that we'll have to revisit down the road here, because that's a great movie. Natalie Portman, I guess I was going to say she hasn't done too much wrong, but that would mean that I wasn't thinking of the classic fantasy film Your Highness, which is a guilty pleasure of mine, to be sure, but wow, it's a bad movie. It's a really just bad movie all the way around. Nobody likes that movie. I play D&D, and that movie sucks. But any movie where a character wears a minotaur's penis around for a half hour, I guess I'll watch. That's a good popcorn flick.
We've deviated a bit from Natalie Portman, but that's okay. Where are you going?
She's in the movie. There you go. All right, she's in the movie. Moving on to my number 2 choice. Jonah Hill, Moneyball. Jonah Hill, known for playing a man in a hot dog suit, asking for people to ask him about his wiener in the movie Accepted, to Academy Award nominated actor and starring in Martin Scorsese movies. This is pretty much due to Moneyball. He got cast in Moneyball as the assistant to Brad Pitt's Billy Bean, character, who is obviously based on the actual Billy Bean, who ran the Oakland Athletics. Still does, I think. And kind of started, Jonah Hill was kind of the basis of the entire Moneyball idea. It was his character who kind of came up with this whole sabermetrics thing that was a whole new way to look at players, and ended up basically taking the Oakland Athletics with a minuscule payroll to an American League Championship. So he was excellent in this movie, and it was a completely dramatic movie. I mean, there were token moments of humor as there are in any movie, but this was a dramatic role, and it was something that Jonah Hill had not done at all. He'd done nothing but comedy.
Yeah, no, I liked Moneyball. That is one that I have seen, much to your surprise, seeing as I, don't love sports or math, really, but, here we are.
A sportsing math movie. You know what? Chris Pratt's in it. That's why you saw it.
Oh, I always forget that he's in that one. He's just Andy from Parks and Rec for me. And, of course, Star-Lord. But yeah, no, Jonah Hill, I was expecting him to be a little more goofy just by nature in that film, and he played it straight and did a great job.
So what's your number 2?
So my number 2 is pretty silly. This one, I guess you could call a quote-unquote breakout performance, and it actually is related to sports also, so I seem to be going with the trend here. LeBron James in the movie Trainwreck with Amy Schumer. That movie was okay. Amy Schumer is okay. It's a little bit rewatchable. It's enjoyable. It's funny. But frankly, for me personally, any time that LeBron James is on the screen, I just giggle like a schoolgirl. I just think he's super silly and funny. Obviously plays himself. And I think, when you have other types of celebrities, be it, sports stars or wrestling or whatever, you're famous but you're not an actor, playing themselves, sometimes it does kind of come off as pretty phony and cheesy, and they're doing their best. But I thought that LeBron James was pretty funny.
He was hilarious. He was, along with John Cena, who John Cena wasn't playing himself.
Oh yeah, John Cena.
John Cena and LeBron James were the funniest parts of Trainwreck.
And Bill Hader. I would say Amy Schumer was the least funny part of the movie.
Well, with Amy Schumer, it just kind of comes down to, do you think her shtick is funny, or is it kind of starting to grate on you? It's kind of starting to grate on me. I have nothing against Amy Schumer. I'm ready to be done with her current thing. She can try something new, I guess. I don't know. She seems like she's doing the same thing every time I see her.
Yeah, agreed.
It's kind of like I don't know, I feel like it was the same thing. Like, Melissa McCarthy was hilarious in Bridesmaids, and then other than, I liked her in Spy, but then every other movie that she's done for a while, I felt like it was the same thing. I feel like we're getting that with Amy Schumer right now. So I think it's time for her to kind of try something different as well. But yes, LeBron James was awesome, and I don't know if he's going to do any more acting. That was kind of a very specific role where he was playing himself, but
for sure,
he proved that he can do it, and I mean, he was hilarious. The top of my list is there's a theme here. It wasn't on purpose, I promise. Channing Tatum. And in Channing Tatum basically had done Step Up and had done a bunch of crap up to that point, some supporting roles here and there, but in general was not considered, a big time actor in any way. And then in the year 2012, he did Magic Mike and 21 Jump Street. So Magic Mike, while it also showed off his, abs and dancing moves that he obviously had from Step Up already, it also showed his acting chops in a dramatic role. Magic Mike was kind of a comedy, but it got pretty serious. I mean, he had to deal with some actual issues in that movie, and it was a drama overall, and it showed that he can be in a serious movie. And he worked with a serious director. I mean, Steven Soderbergh is, no joke as a director, and it kind of gave him a little bit of credibility in the acting world. At the same time, he did 21 Jump Street, and Channing Tatum, up until that point, he hadn't really done comedy, he hadn't really done drama, he'd done, stuff. I don't know how to really quantify it. He did a bunch of stuff, and he was just kind of in it. And nobody really knew, did he have comedic timing? Did he have dramatic chops? Or could he just dance and look good and spout off lines once in a while that sounded okay? So, in Magic Mike, he proved he could do drama. In 21 Jump Street, and again, this is with Jonah Hill, who, at this point, he'd already done Moneyball. Actually, 21 Jump Street was the movie where he had, magically cut his entire body in half to become skinny-ish.
Yeah, sort of skinny, but, fine, either way.
And, but this is the movie where Channing Tatum really got to show off his comedic timing, and holy crap, is he funny in this movie. And since then, he's been in a number of comedies, and he is hilarious in every single one. I mean, he is every bit as funny in 21 Jump Street as Jonah Hill is, if not funnier. And in 22 Jump Street, I think he's significantly funnier than Jonah Hill, but that's, I guess, personal preference. But I think that, Magic Mike and 21 Jump Street with Channing Tatum absolutely, rocket launched his career, and now he's, a super big budget star.
For sure. I mean, those were both movies that I didn't have super high expectations of. I kind of had to be talked into seeing because I thought that they were just going to be really kind of cheesy, groan-worthy movies. But yeah, 21 and 22 Jump Street were super funny. And Magic Mike, I thought was highly enjoyable also, as well as its sequel. So, way to go, Channing Tatum.
So you told me that for your number one pick, you basically reversed the point of the list.
I did. For my number one, I kind of turned the list on its head here. So this is an actor that gives a completely amazing, stellar performance in nearly every single thing that he touches. He's won an Oscar now, yeah, at least, maybe?
He has won a Best Actor Academy Award.
Yes, been nominated, won. I agree with that decision. He's an amazing actor, plays a variety of roles.
He won a Best Actor Academy Award in the same year that he was nominated for a Razzie. Maybe he won the Razzie, I really don't know. For the movie you're about to tell me about.
Yeah. Eddie Redmayne in Jupiter Ascending. Funny enough with Channing Tatum, we're going with the theme here. Oh my god. That is the worst movie. One of the worst movies I have ever seen. Truly.
I like that movie.
Truly one of the worst movies. It has another actor I hate, Mila Kunis, who is fucking useless. She just can do nothing. She can voice Meg. She can be in that 70s show. That is the extent of Mila Kunis. Please go away. But no, seriously, talking about Eddie Redmayne, I don't understand what he did. He affected some sort of weird accent bordering on speech impediment, overacted, underacted. I know you can blame certain things on writing and the fact that movie was absurdly bad, but oh my god, he's such a good actor, and what did he do? It was so bad. So I had to give him some sort of mention, as this was the notable performance, and luckily not a turning point in his career, in that he has still gone on to do fantastic roles, Fantastic Beasts per se, but oh my gosh, bad.
This is a guy that played Stephen Hawking and also played the Danish Girl, which he won the Academy Award for. Did he win for that, or did he win for Theory of Everything? I don't remember. He won for... Anyways,
he was nominated for a Danish Girl at the very least. I think he won for a Theory of Everything.
Okay, so either way...
We don't do our research, obviously.
No, yeah, we're a little... I've got my note cards here. Didn't write that down. So anyways, he is a brilliant actor, and I do love him in pretty much everything he's in. And I liked Jupiter Ascending in a lot of ways. I thought it was a creative movie. I thought it was ambitious. Kind of in the way that like Cloud Atlas was ambitious.
I have nothing good to say about this movie.
It wasn't as good as Cloud Atlas. I love Cloud Atlas. Whether or not you do, that's entirely up to everyone's opinion. I know that's a world divided on that one as well. But anyways, he fucked this role up so bad. Like, I don't know what he was doing. He screams every line like he's just like he's trying to basically murder the director with the sound of his voice, which I believe this was.
But
like
also screams in like a raspy whisper. Like I don't understand.
Really
I don't understand.
And this was a Wachowski movie too, so I don't know. They needed to give him some direction because he didn't do it. He didn't do it right. It was bad.
Real bad.
Bad shit, Eddie Redmayne. You fucking sucked in Jupiter Ascending. And that brings us to the close of our episode as we talk about Eddie Redmayne's worst performance in the history of his life that he'll probably remember for years to come, and probably gives him nightmares to this day.
He still probably got a lot of money for it though, so I bet it's not too hard to fall asleep on all that cash.
No, he has nightmares about Jupiter Ascending, and he wakes up clutching his Oscar.
Yeah.
Makes man feel good when he can hold on to that naked golden man.
As it would anyone.
So next week, we got a couple new releases coming out we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about It. That's the big new release, obviously. Scary Clowns, Pennywise, Stephen King adaptation, one of the kids from Stranger Things, fun stuff. Early buzz is that it's been awesome, so I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I hope it's scary. I hope there's not too much CG. And, I hope it does the book justice. That would be awesome.
I am currently in the middle of the book, even though I grew up watching the TV miniseries, so I know the story.
Because Tim Curry's the shit.
It's true. But I'm really looking forward to it, even though I'm not generally a scary movie person. I hope this one is scary also. I'm trying not to watch the trailers because I don't want everything to be given away. So
He doesn't watch trailers. I watch all the trailers. I've seen them all.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I saw a trailer in the theater the other day and was shielding my eyes only because I would rather be surprised in the moment.
And the other movie we're reviewing, the other new release for next week, we're going to be reviewing Home Again with Reese Witherspoon, Michael Sheen, and a bunch of other fucking guys. So, I feel like I have to, once in a while, we have to do a movie that maybe we think is going to suck. And I gotta say, I kind of think this movie might suck. Every movie I see over the past month, this trailer has played in front of it for this movie Home Again with Reese Witherspoon. And I can't help but think it's going to be terrible. But I'm going to go in with an open mind because I like Reese Witherspoon. I like Michael Sheen. They are both in this movie, and maybe it will be okay.
Yeah, I would like to voice my dissent on this decision. I have pretty much no interest in seeing this movie. I agree that we should be fair and review new releases. But I just thought that this was like a cool kids podcast, and we're going to bring our cool kids opinion to cool movies. But apparently not. We'll do the generic Home Again and see how it goes.
Listen, you do one for yourself, one for the studio. Every actor knows that's how it works. This is our one for the studio. We are reviewing the generic romantic comedy-esque Reese Witherspoon fucking thing. And I'm going to go in with an open mind, and I hope you will too.
I know. Sorry, my pretension was showing. I'll rein it in.
And to be perfectly honest, we haven't decided what else we're doing next week. So if you guys have any suggestions on maybe some hidden gems that you'd like us to take a look at and talk about, we'd be happy to watch them and give a review. Otherwise, we may find something else from the vault here at home that Dana has never laid eyes on that is a travesty. And we'll go from there. We look forward to talking to you next week, and thank you very much for listening.
Bye.